You know, one thing about this lawsuit between Drake and UMG and everything that's happening because of it is being forgotten. Is that if anybody in this situation, okay, is the industry plant, it is Drake. Not saying that he is, not saying that he isn't, but if anybody is, it's him. And boy, do things get messy when the industry plant and the industry plant maker get into a little bit of a disagreement. Let's get into it. All right. Let's continue and let's get right into Pusha T has done an interview with GQ magazine where he sheds light on a lot of things. Now, he sheds light on his relationship with Kanye West. I'll get into that in another video. But he discusses the upcoming album with clips and what has been the hold up with the album. And it has to do with the battle with Kendrick and Drake that happened last summer, and Kendrick being featured on the album, but something about everything that he said doesn't make sense. Not saying that he's not making any sense, but what's not making any sense is UMG's approach to Kendrick being on his album, and I'll explain. But let's first go through the interview and what Pusha T had to say to GQ magazine, and this is courtesy of them. Let me read it here. So this is about the clips So this is about the upcoming Clipse album. If you expected the album last summer, the brothers sympathized, so did they. Pusha says they felt confident, proud, and assured of themselves when they presented the music to Def Jam. The label loved what they heard, except for Kendrick Lamar's guest verse on the thunderous Chains and Whips. The final version of the song that Pharrell teased at his first LV runway show, and the song Pusha says was the first to come out of their sessions. Don't be fooled by Pusha's interviews appealing for one last guest verse and the Twitter jokes that he went to a GNX tour date to physically walk Kendrick into the nearest studio. Okay, that verse has been turned in for a while now, which I figured that. I don't think Kendrick, when working on an album, would have had a problem doing a feature for the clips when he was working on the GNX album all last year, pretty much. So, continuing. But after a summer of beef between the two biggest artists that resulted in a still ongoing lawsuit from Drake, Def Jam's parent company, UMG, blanched at the antagonistic optics of two of Drake's biggest enemies linking on wax. Pusha calls the apprehension stupid, primarily because none of the bars in Kendrick's otherwise excellent verse could really be perceived as a shot or even subliminal. It does, however, contain the stellar line, "Therapy taught me how to open up. It also showed me I don't give a F." Pusha can barely contain his disgust, recounting how the stalemate with Def Jam played out. "They wanted me to ask Kendrick to censor his verse, which of course I was never doing," he explains. "And then they wanted me to take the record off. And so after a month of not doing it, Steve Gawley, the lawyer over there, was like, we'll just drop the clips, but that can't work because I'm still over there solo. But what if you let us all go, ... And sure enough, Def Jam eventually agreed to release the clips and drop Pusha as a solo artist, freeing the duo up to shop for a new home with a finished Clipse album and plenty more music in their pockets. Ultimately, Pusha says the endeavor was gratifying. It felt good to even see how other labels were buying for the project. Now, as they teased last week with a picture in front of the label's plain insignia, they've ended up at Jay-Z's Rock Nation, where they feel fully supported and energized. I think that the synergy, just in a rap sense, is going to speak volumes, Pusha says, of the partnership. Now, for me, this sheds a lot of light on why UMG is fighting so hard, in my opinion, fighting so hard not to go to a trial with this. Because to me, in trial, this is a very easy case to win, right? It's based on forcing or holding a company liable for the hyperbole and expression of an artist, which I think will be defeated in court because it infringes on free speech and so many other things, right? Now, there's two ways to look at this. I can look at it as Def Jam and UMG didn't see enough traction in the album or in Pusha T as an artist, and this was an excuse to drop him anyway. But I don't think that's the case. I think, considering that they had a release date of the summertime, right? Drake didn't file this lawsuit until October. So the fact that this has anything to do with the lawsuit doesn't really make any sense. But what I do think is that Drake's immediate reaction to losing the battle the way he was losing it, and the conversations that the industry plant and the industry plant maker had in the background and in the back channels while he was losing, while this didn't go the way that they thought it would, made them not want to support Kendrick and Pusha T being on record together, right? More than likely, this was recorded either right after the battle or right before. So whatever Kendrick says on the feature wouldn't have any really bearing on the lawsuit. It would just be more of the same. So I think that's an excuse. And I think behind the scenes, Drake was threatening this all along, right? And the threat is not him winning the lawsuit and making, rap battles illegal, right? Or punishable civilly. I think things that will be found in discovery could very well mess up UMG's business. And that's what they don't want to happen, which is, I think, why Drake's team filed the lawsuit in the first place. Because on its face, the lawsuit is kind of ridiculous. It's silly, right? But the aspect of the lawsuit, which is why I think they included, reactors, streamers, and every other person they can include, and promotions, is how UMG goes about garnering marketing, which could be seen as payola in a way, right? If we look at the stay on stream type situation, if we look at the Kai Cenats and Wackademics, Akadidi being on the phone with the artists, and that seeming to be genuine and off the cuff, could be a planned act in how they release songs. Now, is that illegal or would that be a problem for them? I'm not sure. I'm not a lawyer again. This is just an opinion from a music fan who has a little bit of experience with the music business. But the idea that the OV Hoes had that UMG was backing Kendrick during this whole thing kind of falls on its face now, because if they were supporting Kendrick and expecting him to win and even helping him to win, that would bolster the Clipse album and the release. Because again, this happened before there was a lawsuit. Even if Drake was threatening a lawsuit, okay, the lawyers know that they're not going to win this lawsuit based on hyperbole, period, leading to a conviction on defamation. That's not going to happen. But if you're trying to avoid a lawsuit because you don't want whatever's going to come out in discovery about your business practices that don't have to do with this battle to be revealed, then you take the stance UMG has been taking thus far, in my opinion, which is totally trying to avoid discovery. To me, this is kind of an open and shut case at a trial. If you simply look at documentaries or biographical works in film and in music and all over the place, in books, etc., making hyperbole or political license punishable due to defamation would open up a huge can of worms, and people could sue for forever as far as being mischaracterized in the media. And I put mischaracterized in quotes, so to speak, right? Because again, in this case, all Kendrick did was grant the wishes of Drake when Drake, in the Tailor-Made Freestyle record, asked Kendrick to say these things that he's now suing for about him. And plenty of people have pointed that out by now. And the reason this lawsuit made me turn on Drake completely, I'm gonna be honest. And the reason it made me turn on Drake is because you're making me kind of stand on the side of Universal Music Group and the corporation, which I normally don't stand on the side of the corporations because I don't like the way the music business is structured, right? I think they're trying to avoid the discovery, because if it comes out, which it will in the court proceedings through discovery, how UMG goes about their business, a lot more lawsuits, viable lawsuits, could come out of the discovery part of this lawsuit. Now, do I think Drake and his team, that was their plan? No, I think Drake is just trying to throw mud on Kendrick Lamar's success. It did not work. His success has continued and will continue, and that's what that is. But the discovery part is the backup plan, so to speak, right? It's snitching on the team. Drake knows exactly how UMG goes about not only promoting records, but the shortcuts they also may take in which to do so, which could get them in trouble with other artists. Not about libel and not about defamation, but about fair business practices and whether they promote artists equally and evenly, based solely on running a business and profits, and not necessarily to push narratives and push certain artists, and I gotta be careful the way I say this, based on certain alleged conspiratorial agendas. Let me say it that way. So when Kendrick rapped about watching the party die, That's exactly what we're doing, and I think it's happening in a myriad of ways. And let me not say that. The practices of a lot of the corporations in the music industry could come under fire due to this lawsuit. So we'll see exactly, especially their reaction to it. So we'll see how this goes, man. But interesting. This is a very interesting dynamic added to the Drake lawsuit situation and added to UMG's whole way that they're handling this and have handled the battle and the whole thing. But let me know what you think in the comments below, man. Hit that like button if you haven't hit that like button yet. Hit that subscribe button if you're not subscribed. Share this video. Tell a friend and tell a friend. Thank y'all for watching as always, and we out.